This is a community-supported legal education channel. Find out how you can support our mission at the links in the description below.
No. Hello everyone, I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and I have what I think is possibly the conclusion to the Akilah Hughes versus Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, case. The whole thing might be wrapped up very shortly here. The judge just issued the judgment that we've been talking about, a $38,911.89 judgment. And I was about to sit down and edit the video that I was going to put out about the judgment, which you'll still see here. I'm just going to give you this little preface because it appears that Akilah Hughes may have actually turned around and sort of done the right thing and raised the money through a GoFundMe campaign to pay Sargon of Akkad. So she has raised $44,821 of the $38,912 goal, and she says, help Akilah pay an alleged white supremacist. Now, really interesting. I think calling somebody that is a matter of opinion, but still, I guess she's very afraid of future court cases because I don't think she wants a defamation suit against her. Of course, they're going to start with the cutting just as I start here, so hang on a sec, I'll be right back. And so let's just see what she has to say here, and I'll react to it for you, and then I'll play my previous video about the judgment, but know that this is hopefully money that is going to pay the judgment in order for this to be the end of the case. If she doesn't use this money to pay the judgment, that's fine. She has to pay the judgment some other way, and Sargon and Attorney Mullen will have to pursue her into her local county court. But I'm guessing that this is so that she can actually pay the judgment and have the case and thing be over with. She writes, "It's true, I need your help to raise money for an alleged white supremacist. A Donald Trump appointed judge is ordering me to pay a person that I believe is that thing legal fees after I sued him for posting a video 100% made of my work without any commentary aside from changing the name of the video to something about me being an SJW. This issue is multifaceted," she admits, "but it mainly revolves around 1. Digital IP and copyright law being wholly subjective and virtually non-existent compared to traditional media's copyright standards." No, there was no different standard applied to her case. This was the fair use standard, and it was such a clear fair use that the judge was able to get rid of it on a motion to dismiss. If you remember, we went over it. The judge issued a 10-page opinion explaining step by step how the use of Akilah Hughes' work is a fair use. He talked about how they have different audiences, how he basically mocked her through it, and he says things like, "A new work may be transformative even where it consists entirely of portions of the original work," and cites to several cases. He says, "Levels of awareness is plainly used in a sarcastic manner when combined with the term SJW, implying a lack of awareness concerning social or political matters." He says, "A reasonable observer would plainly infer from the title of Benjamin's video, the context in which it was posted, and its selective copying that it was intended to criticize Hughes and comment on her perceived lack of awareness. The first fair use factor, the transformation factor, favors Benjamin." He also says that the more transformative the secondary use, the less the likelihood that the secondary use substitutes for the original on the fourth fair use factor. These are the two most important factors for this analysis. This is a very clearly written and well-worded opinion, and if she has a problem with it, she could have appealed, but she didn't. And so maybe what she's saying here now on her GoFundMe might just be a little bit disingenuous, intended to raise outrage as opposed to address the actual flaws in the judge's ruling that she says apply. She also says that somehow that opinion was affected by YouTube's unequally applied standards. That has absolutely nothing to do with it. YouTube doesn't have anything to do with Judge Sullivan's opinion. YouTube was not involved in the case whatsoever. The medium being YouTube had nothing to do with it. The way YouTube handled it had absolutely nothing to do with it. 3, YouTube's lagging understanding of online harassment. Again, has nothing to do with copyright. I understand that she got harassed and probably still gets harassed, and I feel for her. I would not like to be harassed online either, but that has, again, nothing to do with whether a copyright use is a fair use or not. And 4, a desire to raise money for Black organizations and bail funds. Great. So she's done pretty much what she made Sargon do. She has raised $44,821 on GoFundMe to pay his legal bills. He also raised somewhere around $100-some thousand for his case. So it sounds like everybody wins. This is the best outcome you could hope for. These two are not going to learn a lesson from this. I guarantee you they have not learned any lessons. If I was their parents and they were children, I would have put them in the corner and told them to think about what they'd done and maybe write a 500-word essay explaining why what they did was wrong on both sides. I think both of them have a lot of growing up to do, but I'm a copyright attorney and I love copyright law. I am a believer in copyright law. That Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution, which says that to promote the progress and science of the useful arts, people can have copyrights and trademarks and other intellectual property rights like patents, basically a legal monopoly over their creation for a period of time. We can argue all day over how well that is actually working. There was 3 hours worth of copyright hearing that I'm currently editing to get to you about copyright reform that Congress is taking up right now. I don't think it's going to go anywhere yet. We are kind of in the middle of a contentious election. So someday there might actually be some copyright reform. People do know that copyright law does not work as well as it was intended. But then when I ask people what is wrong with it and how we would fix it, they can really only answer the what's wrong with it part. That creators get screwed over, that people can pirate, that fair use is unclear, that DMCA notices can be used to censor. But how do you fix it? Silence. A lot of people, even those who are directly affected, even me, don't know exactly what the solution would be. If you add more effort and energy into the system, well, you're going to need to pay those people to process fair use adjudications or something on a more expedited basis. But then to do that, you've got to create that copyright small claims court that people are really upset might make it easier to sue for small copyright infringements. People are already upset that people get sued for small copyright infringements now, sometimes even upset that people get sued for large copyright infringements. But that would make it easier to sue, but it would also make it easier to adjudicate fair uses. So what is the right answer there? She continues, based again on a Donald Trump appointed judge's determination. I'm going to disagree there. I don't think who appointed Judge Sullivan has anything to do with Judge Sullivan's analysis. I think the analysis was quite sound. I think it was based on precedential law. It was well cited. And if she actually had a reason to complain, look, she can raise all this money. She could have paid for an appeal, and she didn't. So instead of appealing, because there were no grounds to appeal or because she was just tired of litigation that she was going to use to flatten Sargon, remember? That became part of the attorney's fees motion. She was very outspoken on her social media about how she was going to bankrupt him. Well, now nobody's bankrupt. The world righted the injustice in both directions. Sargon got his attorney's fees paid for. Attorney Mullen's going to get his attorney's fees paid for. The world has paid for it through here on the GoFundMe now. And hopefully the last step is that she actually has to transfer the funds. And that should be the conclusion of it if it actually happens. If it doesn't happen, then we'll be here to bring you an update on whatever the next step was. Some of this then goes into more sort of apologizing or justification for why this is so wrong that she got harassed and things. I get it that she's upset that she got harassed. I would be upset if I got harassed too. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Her reaction is a bit childish, and I don't think that she's actually learned a lesson from her behavior. But, you know, I'm not really here to scold people for their bad behavior. I am here to call you out on your copyright BS, and I think she is completely wrong about copyright and continues to be wrong about copyright and doesn't seem to want to change her worldview to fit her experience and the facts that she's encountered. And that sort of makes Sargon's criticism of her valid to begin with, at least the valid part of the criticism. I'm not trying to endorse anything worse, but the criticism of her being politically unaware, that seems to be valid because she seems to be unable to conform herself to actual facts and world experience. Anyway, I'll now post the rest of my video about the judgment being entered. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video. Oh yes, let's definitely talk about this. So we have the briefest of updates for you in the Akilah Hughes versus Carl Benjamin case. This is the Sargon of Akkad case. This is where Akilah Hughes made a video about Hillary Clinton losing the 2016 presidential election, and then Carl Benjamin cut it up and made his own video out of it. There was no commentary, there was no criticism. The criticism and commentary or fair use was made by the way he cut it up to show how ridiculous her positions were. And that's a matter of opinion. I'm not saying her positions were ridiculous. I also was surprised by Hillary Clinton's loss, but maybe I wasn't so euphoric before and so devastated afterwards because I still sort of recognized the contest that was going on. These are just matters of opinion. You can agree with one side or the other, but what is not up for disagreement is that Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, made a fair use. But somewhat ironically, Morrison and Lee contacted me in Lawful Masses capacity to be the first publication, the breaking of the story of Akilah Hughes' lawsuit. And then the attorney representation changed and Akilah Hughes had a different attorney. And it became clear then with the judge's ruling that Akilah Hughes had lost the case and that Sargon had made a fair use. In losing the case, then, the parties then get to fight over who pays the attorney's fees and costs. I don't believe there was any actual monetary judgment on the merits of the case, so it wasn't that Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, won some kind of money from the underlying case. I don't think he had made a case good enough to win money damages from her. But he did incur substantial legal fees, and Wesley Mullen did do a lot of work, and I'm actually really impressed with the work that Attorney Mullen did in this case. And so under 17 U.S.C. 505, which is the fee-shifting provision of copyright law, Carl Benjamin, the winning prevailing party, gets to ask for his attorney's fees back. And there's another case, the Fogarty case, which helps determine when a prevailing party gets to recover their attorney's fees and costs. And we also know that under the is it Rimini Street case? I think it's the Rimini Street case, that in a copyright case, only certain costs get repaid when you're the prevailing party. There's like 6 categories or something. We did a video about it. You can check it out. I'll try to put a bubble up here. So this is the judgment then for attorney's fees and costs, which we covered in a previous video when the defendant, Carl Benjamin, Sargon of Akkad, asked for it. Why would they ask for a judgment if those costs had been paid by Akilah Hughes? Well, they weren't paid by Akilah Hughes, or they wouldn't ask for a judgment. So if you're asking for a judgment, what effect does a judgment in a federal court have? It's the next step in then visiting that judgment on the person who owes that judgment. Akilah Hughes becomes a debtor, and Carl Benjamin becomes a creditor. So as of October 9th, 2020, Akilah Hughes officially owes Carl Benjamin $38,911.89. And if you go back and watch our previous video, we went over all of the things that Sargon can do to try and collect that from her, including garnishing wages, which could likely include her YouTube income or whatever sources of income that she has. And they don't have to just shoot in the dark to figure out what income sources she has. They get to ask her in a discovery situation, discovery of relevant evidence, this time the relevant to the repayment of the debt. They get to ask her what her sources of income are, and then they can garnish wages. And that might include wages from YouTube or wages from other sources of her income. They can also ask the sheriff or the appropriate local county authority. It's usually not the police. Their job is policing. It's usually the sheriff who works for the court. The sheriff would then inventory her property, provide that inventory to Carl Benjamin and his attorneys, who would then pick things to execute against, and then those things would become Carl Benjamin's, and the sheriff goes out and gets those things. And if she tries to transfer those things away to avoid having to pay this judgment, that's considered a fraudulent transfer and could become a criminal offense if it's done with enough intent, with the right mens rea. So this is a serious situation for her. She's going to have to either settle with Sargon on this judgment for some amount of money, probably a private amount of money, or they're just going to continue to levy and execute against her property. She's not able to sell property now. She owns property, like real estate or cars, something that's officially titled. She's not going to be allowed to sell that property without fulfilling this judgment. These judgments can become a lien against her personal and well, it's personal property, but it's still real estate or a car or a boat or something like that. And you can't sell it until that lien is satisfied, or you can sell it only to satisfy the lien. So this is a very serious situation for her. She now owes $38,911.89, and that is going to have to be repaid in probably in whole, but if she settles, it could be in part. The other thing that could happen, and this is entirely speculation. Let me put a big, speculation up on the screen here in front of me. If Akilah Hughes feels that her attorneys did her wrong, that if they encouraged her to file the lawsuit, guaranteeing that it's going to be won easily because of the copying, it could be a situation where she has a claim against her attorneys, either the original attorneys or the new attorney. Now, I don't like saying this at all, but someone out there really, really thought that she had a very strong case. I think she continues to think to this day that she had a really, really strong case. Now, if that's all Akilah Hughes, then that's on Akilah Hughes. But if her attorneys advised her that she has a really strong case and she's definitely going to win, well, then maybe she will seek something from them from having encouraged her to do this. And I don't really know what the legal standard is there for when the attorney becomes responsible for the fees and costs or whatever the judgment is when you lose. I don't even want to think about that. But if there was enough wrongdoing, then there could be some reason for at least a complaint and at most a recovery of some amount of money from those attorneys. Much more likely, again, this is all speculation here at this point, much more likely is that Akilah Hughes just owes it herself to Carl Benjamin, and there is no liability for the attorneys who did their best to prosecute her case. Ultimately, if the attorneys did their job, then Akilah Hughes was told that she could lose, and if she loses, she'll have to pay. So don't go ahead unless you're also able to pay for the loss. We don't get to see what goes on. We don't know what the attorneys did behind closed doors. What I do know is that I was the one approached to break the story of the original lawsuit as if it was some big deal. And we do know that she said a lot on her social media as well. So I don't know if there was a level of conduct, it has to be a really high level of misconduct, then something could shift there. But that's what it is. $38,911.89 is owed by Akilah Hughes to Carl Benjamin, aka Sargon of Akkad, as of October 9th, 2020. Now, the difficulty for us on the channel is trying to find what will eventually be the execution of this judgment in New York court. So this is the Southern District of New York, which is usually mostly Manhattan. I don't know what other region is in there, and we have to figure out what counties that involves and where Akilah Hughes, not necessarily like what address she lives at, but what county she lives in. And then we have to monitor that county for the judgment and the execution for the execution of this judgment in her local county. So we'll have to find that, and I don't have a system that alerts me to those things. So that'll be a manual thing I have to do every couple days. So from here, we'll try to find that. If you guys find that, great, share it with me and we'll make more videos about it. This is very interesting how a copyright fair use turned into a monetary judgment for fees and costs in favor of the defendant. This was a remarkable copyright case, and I've really enjoyed following this one. So thank you for also being a great audience. Please discuss it civilly in the comments below. I love you all, and I'll see you there. Yeah, that's a good point. She had put a lot on her Twitter about how she was going to win. She thought she would win, didn't she? And she said that she was going to bankrupt Carl Benjamin, and she said that she was going to this or that, hurt him in this way or that way. I think we discussed it in a previous video. And that was then used against her to say that she did not have the proper motives. She wasn't here to resolve a question of fact and law about copyright. She was here to hurt Carl Benjamin. And that made it much more likely that she would get an attorney's fees award against her. If she hadn't done that, it would have been a much closer decision as to how much in attorney's fees, if any at all, were due. If it had simply been the fair use. If she was like, well, I don't know if he made a fair use, I think he didn't, and he thinks he does, I don't know that she would have been hit with his attorney's fees. It's all of the vitriol and frankly hate, I think. I get that the two are political opponents, but I mean, it's spilled over into hatred, in my opinion. So that the court did not like that. The court did not like to see that, and I think the court took that into account significantly when deciding whether fees and costs were due. I do not think the judge liked that at all. It's true that she didn't need to bring the suit at all, but let's at least give her the benefit of the doubt. He did use her video. He used a lot of her video. It did seem like it wasn't quite the same kind of fair use as we are used to seeing in, say, the H3H3 case, a quintessential fair use case where they broke up a video and made commentary only on the parts that they were making commentary on somebody's video. That was a quintessential fair use. Carl Benjamin's was changing a title, making it to a different audience, and then cutting up her video, but otherwise not making commentary, otherwise not putting his face on it or saying this or that about her video. He simply cut up her video. So that does make a big difference, I think, in the analysis of whether she had any reason to file in the first place. I can see where she got the idea that she had to file from. It felt like it was copyright infringement from her perspective. But then it was the conduct after that that I think got her a $38,911.89 judgment of attorney's fees. Remember, she wanted to settle the case after the judge said that she was likely to lose, and the settlement was a payment of, I think it was like $30,000 in her favor. So that was pretty disingenuous. And then there was all that posting on social media about the case, not in a, oh, I really hope I win this case, but more so like, we're gonna get him kind of thing. It was more venomous, as one chatter just said. It was more venomous than it needed to be, and I think that affected the judge's ruling. And that's our show. Thanks for joining me. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney, and this is Lawful Masses, your favorite legal news and education program here on YouTube, on Floatplane, and on Twitch. Thank you to our supporters on patreon.com/ljfrench and sponsors.com/law. In the month of October, thank you to our $50 plus supporters who get called out by name: Joe Tyson, Wes Delj, Citizen of the Sovereign, John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Kyle Mudrak, Spirit Bear, Andy, Benjamin Hitov, Stephen, Goliath, Cleric, Cleric, Ugly Grill, Shielo T, Rudolph Bescherer Jr., J. Dixon, Hot Grills in Your Area, Oscar the Phrophet, Brandyn, Abel, torpedan, IANAL, which means I am not a lawyer. Of course, I am a lawyer, but that's a friend of mine who is having fun with us, Cassandra, Curran, and ShadowTycho. And thank you to the $5 plus supporters who are scrolling on the still operating LED panel behind me, and everyone is on this crawl on the screen in front of me, and a description of the videos. I love you all. I will see you in the videos that drop. Have a good one. Bye.
You got me stoned.